The latest update news for World of Tanks console has been released, and today's video is going to cover everything that you need to know about the new tech tree vehicles, some of the operations that you can take advantage of this week on World of Tanks console, and of course don't forget to leave your comments as to what you think about this latest season in the form of the independents, and of course let me know what you think the next season is going to be for World of Tanks console. But let's first get into the new tech tree vehicles before we look at the challenges, events, operations that you can use. So these new vehicles, they come in the form of the Macava heavy tanks, and these are actually really interesting, even for if you're not that interested in Cold War itself. These are Cold War vehicles to immediately tell you, and they come in the form of Teton era tanks, and they lead on from the Magash 6B Galbatash, and this is of course I think the Israeli tank line that is on console so far, and these come kind of as the top tier alternatives to things like the M1A2 Abrams and some of the other vehicles that you have, the T-72BU and that sort of thing that we currently have in the Teton era, of course some of the premium tanks that you have, and so let's first have a look at what these vehicles look like, what you can expect from them, and of course let's actually have a look at the armor model of each of these tanks, since the statistics of the vehicle have actually already been released. So first things first, what do these tanks look like? Well, this is what this tank first looks like. This is the original or the bottom tier within the era, and this is the Macava Mark I. This leads on from the Magash 6B Galbatash, and it will cost you 8.25 million silver. As with all of these kind of high-end Cold War vehicles, they are super expensive, but remember, like comparatively to what a tier 10 would cost, it's not actually as much as you think, and considering like if you're using 2 times silver boosters with a premium Cold War vehicle, you can earn like 400,000 silver a game, so yeah, it's not actually as much as you may think, but to start with, let's look at the armor model of the vehicle. We can see it here, and you can see that it's pretty weak. This tank is not really looking like it has a ton of armor. Yes, it will probably be very well sloped, so you're going to be able to bounce a few rounds, but ultimately you're looking at the maximum armor being 451 millimeters, and that is what you can see on the turret here. You can see lower values can kind of range in the turret area. I expect that there will be some spacing or spaced armor on the front of this vehicle, but ultimately the spaced armor is visible on the sides. You've got a little bit here, and that's going to eat up any of the heat ammunition that you're going to be receiving, but ultimately I think you're going to be getting penned fairly reliably in this thing. However, one thing that you will note when you're actually looking at the statistics of this vehicle is that you will be able to kind of travel at a pretty meaty speed. 70 kilometers an hour makes you more of like a medium heavy tank. You know, when it comes to Cold War, a lot of these heavy tanks in quotation marks are basically just main battle tanks, and they're able to kind of travel at the speeds that a lot of the mediums will. So although they might be classed as a heavy, some of them are more like medium tanks, and some of them might actually play more like light tanks, and vice versa, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, the actual distinction between them becomes more an actual statistics wise and how they're going to play in the game. And that's certainly what this initial Macava Mark I looks like it's going to be. You can see what Wargaming are saying that it's going to be is the indigenous Macava main battle tank was announced to the public in 1977, blah blah blah. Although the tank's power to weight ratio was considered poor, its distinct design with its sloped frontal armour and placement of blah 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 engine in the front offered superior crew protection, which is always nice because obviously you get a lot of the spool going behind when a tank round actually hits a tank, and therefore a lot of the crew get knocked out even when a round doesn't penetrate, but that's a little bit boring, I expect, for most of you. But there we go, this is what this tank is all about. The penetration value is looking pretty standard. Of course you get 460 with the standard round. I think you get missiles with this thing, or at least I would assume that these are missiles, considering you get about 2.5 times more damage with them, so they're going to be missiles, which is nice. and you'll be able to get 800 penetration, which is really, really massive, and so you're not really going to be bouncing off anything. I would suggest that you use your missiles as and when you can, when you get in close quarters engagements and you're able to secure hits. I wouldn't really be firing missiles at super long ranges because they just don't particularly work very well, and they're easily avoidable unless someone is like literally standing exactly still. But yeah, trying to make sure that that doesn't happen and they don't move out of the way is a little bit difficult. But yeah, they are definitely missiles. ATGM, 280 meters a second, not particularly great. Standard rounds are APCR, so you'll be able to hit pretty consistently with this, and so you'll be expecting a damage per minute of 4,500, which is okay. It's nothing super out of this world, but it's definitely a very solid one to start with. And of course you can put equipment on this tank to secure some interesting extras as well. And a reload of 6.1 seconds, dealing 460 damage is not bad whatsoever. Decent view range as well for a heavy tank. So yeah, overall looking interesting. Then of course we move into the Macava Mark II. I wonder why it's called the Mark II, obviously because it leads past the Mark I. Now what you'll notice here is that the sloped armor becomes more prominent, and you can actually see armor that looks like it's going to bounce. I mean, just from the visual or aesthetic of the tank, it looks like it's better, and you're probably going to be seeing that with these Macava Mark IIBs. And obviously as you go through the tank line, albeit there's only one more tank after this, yeah, you're definitely going to be seeing some more rounds bouncing off of these, and of course looking more like heavy tanks. And you can see that actually the frontal armor here super sloped. Yes, you've got like a flat bar here that people are going to be able to hit, but when you're kind of switching side to side, and because of the 65 kilometers an hour top speed limit of this vehicle, you're going to be able to swift left and right. You're going to be able to swing around and make it really difficult for people to pinpoint this lower plate, unless of course they're really close, or alternatively, if they can get the side armor of this vehicle, they're probably going to be able to pen pretty reliably. I would expect that the armor on the side is actually covered by this spaced armor that looks like it's on the side. I don't know if that's the case, but if it isn't, looks like you're going to be getting penned really easily in the side if this is the actual armor value when you're not looking at it frontally. But nonetheless, looking really solid. We'll have a look at the gun depression to see how these are going to work on ridge lines. You've got 8.5 degrees of gun depression, which is it's decent. It's nothing world breaking, but it's definitely usable on ridge lines, and with the turret model it's going to be super hard to pen if they get on ridge lines as well. A power to weight is okay, moderate to be honest with you for Cold War vehicles. 65 kilometers an hour, 78 total degrees a second, so it's going to take you about 5 seconds to do an entire rotation, and that includes not your actual hull of your tank moving around. That'll take nearly 10 seconds, but if someone is trying to out traverse you, they would have to be moving very quickly to be able to kind of travel around the entirety of your tank without you being able to catch up with them. And then, of course, 1.7 second aim time, really fantastic to be honest. 0.19 accuracy, very good. Reload 4.9 second. A DPM is very much the same as the Mark I with 4,578. Of course, you get the ATGM, and pretty much the main gun of this thing is exactly the same. So not much change really there with regards to the Mark IIB in terms of the armament. Then, of course, we move on to the final tank in the Macava line, and this is the third version within the line, the Macava Mark III, and this is what this tank looks like, looking pretty badass to be honest with you. Definitely looks like one I would want to get in the game, if I had time to be honest. But you can see here this vehicle actually getting premium rounds instead of having HE, and it also gets the missiles as well. So this is looking more like a bit more of a dominatory kind of vehicle, and definitely known as the pinnacle within Cold War, at least for this line. And you can see here the power to weight ratio gone up quite substantially by about 25%, which is nice. You got the speed limit going up as well to 70 kilometers an hour, so very fast to be honest. Decent power to weight, good hull and turret traverse. 7 degrees of gun depression, not massive, but there we go, it's usable. Penetration value is very decent. Damage is also quite nice, 530. You also get the use of ATGMs, which is super nice as well. It just adds so much more damage if you can utilise those correctly. 1.9 second aim time, slightly higher than the Mark II, and accuracy 0.24, which is slightly higher than the Mark II as well, but nothing really too major. Reload time, obviously 6.8 seconds, since you get the increased damage over the Mark II, but the damage per minute is slightly higher, but only by about 100 over the Mark II as well. But remember, it's probably more effective damage per minute because you can deal more damage every single shot, which means you don't have to poke and you don't have to consistently get as many shots in every single minute to maximize the damage per minute, if that makes sense, because you have to have the opportunities to be able to get the damage, and if you have to limit the amount of opportunities you need to get the damage, then of course you're going to be able to get it more consistently. Then of course we've got view range 525, pretty standard. I don't think you're going to be really outspotting all too much. But overall, the Macava line looking very, very nice in general. I think it would be a line that I would probably go down pretty easily. And of course, with the armor model of these tanks getting spaced armor, being very, very slim profiled, and of course having this really troll armor, could definitely pull off quite a few bounces. And I'm interested to see how they will perform, even if maybe the armor model doesn't work. Maybe they play more like a medium heavy tank. But of course, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. Are these just going to be trash? Do you think that they're going to be much like the Magash 6B, Galbatash, and all of the previous tanks introduced into World of Tanks console with the independent season? Are they going to be terrible? And how do you think that these will fare in the matchup? If you're not really interested in any of these tanks, but you want to take advantage of this operation that comes in the form of the reinforcement Macava challenges, well, you can effectively get extra silver for all of the Cold War vehicles in the Detente era. Of course, you will have to play Detente era to take advantage of these, because these are the only vehicles that have been released and with this operation. And effectively what you can do to get 25% more silver is destroy one of the vehicles that we've just mentioned, and you get 25% more silver, and that's available to any tank that plays in the Detente era. And equally, you could play in a Macava and destroy a Macava and get the 25% silver bonus. And if you actually play in the Macava line itself and you destroy two tanks, you will get an extra 25% silver bonus, because you will have already got this one here for just destroying a Macava. And then if you destroy another vehicle, it can be any vehicle as well, whilst playing in it, you'll get 25% silver. So you could effectively get 50% more silver playing in any of these new tanks, and 25% playing in just any random Detente era tank as well. And then remember, if you are deciding to play the Macava, you will be able to get up to 500,000 silver a day of premium, and 10 times 4 Commander XP boosters if you manage to destroy 75 or more vehicles playing in those tanks themselves. So a very, very nice operation, combined with some pretty nice looking tanks. And of course, I'm very interested to see what you guys actually think about them. But other than that, let's jump into the other operations and details for this update that we have this week as well. So we're going to condense it all down into a shorter period in this update news, and so we're going to run through it pretty quickly. But if you want an in-depth summary, I have a full video on the information, along with the big announcement that Pain God is leaving Wargaming, and of course we'll be getting a new executive producer of the game itself coming in to take his place, and potentially a new direction for World of Tanks console, but that's yet to be decided. Of course, here you can see these are the content changes coming in this week as of the recording and publishing of this video. These will be in the game that you can take advantage of, and of course these are the new tech tree vehicles that we've already covered, and in addition to this we'll get new mercenary contracts, although they're not really necessarily new mercenary tanks, and these come in the form of the seal clubbing disgusting broken Thresher that has been released in World of Tanks console. And I think from what I saw in the comments of my last video, that this is actually the highest win rate tank in World of Tanks console, with an average win rate of 63% or something like that, which is way above any other tank in the game. I don't know if that is 100% correct, but I know that this tank is pretty disgusting. I think it is a tier 3, and yeah, a lot of SEAL clubbers will decide to think that they're good at the game by just jumping in this tank and taking out people that have never played the game before, and apparently that makes them good at the game. You know, take of that what you will. If you're playing against people that have never played the game, yeah, it doesn't really determine your skill at all. Of course, then you get the chisel, which is a bit more of a determinant as to whether you're good at the game, and that is playing at tier 10. And this is a tank that is fantastic and definitely worth grinding towards. I'm not saying if you play the Thresher a couple games that you're a SEAL clubber, but I'm definitely saying that if you are spending 1,000 games in this thing, you probably shouldn't be. You know, do whatever you want. I'm just saying it's definitely frowned upon, or at least don't go saying that you have a super high win rate when you're playing in these sort of tanks, because you don't really. But reinforcements, Macava, that's the operation, and of course then we've got the premium bonus 10, and the premium bonus 10, if we go up slightly, is outlined here, where you can get an extra 50% XP and 50% silver on every single battle you play in the Cold War vehicle. So this is the first one available, and this comes in the form of the M1A2 Abrams and the T72BU. And I think that these are actually the lines themselves, so you will get 50% more XP and silver playing any of the tanks leading up to those two tanks right there. So that is fantastic for grinding towards some of these Cold War vehicles. And of course, remember, if you get to the Deton era and you're playing through them, you will not only be able to take advantage of the premium bonus, but also the Macava operation as well, where you can get the extra 25% silver bonus if you are playing in those vehicles leading up to the M1A2 and the T72BU in Deton era, and you manage to destroy one of these. So effectively nearly 75%, well, 75% silver if you do complete both of those tasks. Of course, then we've got the Light Tank Mastery, where effectively you can get quite a bit of extra silver coming into your account. Effectively, you have to complete a series of tasks. You can see them in the season challenges in the game on the Operation tab, and you can see what the requirements are. There's usually like detect 15,000 XP or damage worth of assistance damage or something like that in the week. Once you complete that, you get a medal, you get 1,000,000 silver, and if you can manage to complete all of the Light Tank Mastery events, you can then get a top secret keycard that will be given into your account, which is always nice. Free keycard and free gold, effectively. And then, of course, the Carnarvon Action X Challenge. I believe that this is the final week coming in for the Carnarvon Action X, and I did a full video on that tank itself. It is an amazing tank, and definitely one you want to get if you haven't already got it. And, of course, it is free for those of you who can complete 3 stages of the 4-week challenges that have been available for the Carnarvon Action X. So definitely get on that if you haven't already and complete it to get this free tier 8 premium British heavy tank that is very, very solid indeed. And now then, coming on to the probably an interesting bit of the video where we look at the bundles that you can actually purchase within the game, and these come in the form of the Absolution, the T3488, and the Absolution and T3488 are a very, very broken bundle, to be honest with you. The Absolution, a fantastic tier 6 mercenary heavy tank, very, very solid, and then the T3488 is a very, very disgusting Russian / Soviet medium tier 6 tank as well, which is outrageously good at being able to chunk out damage in tier 6 games and even in tier 7 and 8 games, which it can meet as well. So yeah, definitely 2 really, really, really solid tier 6s to take account of. And then you've got the Lycan and the AT-15A. The Lycan T-71 is a very solid one. Light tank within a 6-shot autoloader, 150 damage per shot. You can do 900 in a clip, I believe. Very, very good when it was first released. Probably less so now, but definitely a decent competitive tank. And then the AT-15A. I've not personally played the AT-15A. I may have it in the account. I just haven't really got round to actually testing it out and giving it a full overview. But I know from personal experience of coming up against them that it's kind of okay, but it's nothing like going to break the game or anything like that. So yeah, maybe some of you who have played this tank, let others know in the comment section down below whether or not this tank is actually worth it and whether they should spend the money on this vehicle. It is a tier 7, the AT-15A tank destroyer for the British line. So yeah, decide on that yourselves. I'm not 100% on whether this is a good tank or not. And then we have the Casemate Snipers, which comes in the form of the TS5 and the Panzernacker Auto, both tier 8 tank destroyers. TS5 is very, very solid, and the Panzernacker Auto is a auto-loading J-Panther, effectively. Don't quite know how this stacks up in the game. I know that having like nearly 1,000 alpha damage in a tier 8 is pretty broken, but I don't know how the kind of mobility and extras surrounding the fact that it's basically a tier 7 with an auto load that can deal 1,000 damage at tier 8. I don't know how it's going to work, but yeah, let me know as well with this tank. But overall, a pretty good lineup of bundles this week. And for those of you interested in the deals of the week, you can get 7 days of premium, and you can also get a very, 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 very fun tier 6 Soviet light tank in the T50-2, and one almost, I have to implore anyone that plays World of Tanks console must try the T50-2. It is a flipping good tank, and you'll probably get the reference when you actually purchase the tank as to the flipping bit, but you do end up on your roof quite a few times with this tank, but you can also go like 90 kilometers an hour. So, and you can circle heavy tanks for days, and you basically cut them by 1,000 cuts. So you end up actually pumping them for full health in about like 90 shots. But there we go. It is a super, super fun tank to play, and one that is only made better if you play it in a platoon as well. But you definitely don't need a platoon to make this tank feel super fun. And then you get the personal offers, which come in the form of the Excalibur, my favourite tier 6 tank in the game, and one that I managed to get 100% marks of excellence on. A really, really fun one, very novel. It's not overpowered or anything like that, but it's definitely one that I always like the look of. Yeah, I just don't know, it just clicks with me as to how I perform in this vehicle. And then the Beach Party, I don't know how this tank is. I feel like it's okay. It's nothing outstanding. And then the WZ122, it's okay. It's nothing outstanding either. But primarily the bundles that you probably want to focus on is the Absolution and T3488. If you haven't got it, then you'd probably want the T50-2. I would go with the Excalibur, but that's probably a little bit biased. But then maybe the TS5 and the Panzernacker. And then, yeah, the others are just up to your personal opinion. I don't have much of a inkling as to how the AT-15A is going to perform, but overall I hope that was a good rundown of this week's news. Of course, we are waiting for the next season coming very, very soon in the following month, early to next month that is. So I think we've got 2 weeks left of this season, and then we'll get a new one with lots of new content, and of course I will cover all of that for you guys as and when that we get the information. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think the new season is going to be, and if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. And of course, thank you very much for supporting the channel as much as you do. If you want to support the channel even more, go ahead and look at some of the other videos that we have on the channel. I'm sure probably quite a few of you have seen a lot of the videos that have already been published every single day, pretty much. And of course, we've got like 600 videos I think I've got now on the channel, which is crazy, over the last like year and a half to 2 years nearly coming up that I've been continually uploading on the channel. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and of course, let me know in the comment section down below any questions or queries you may have. But yeah, check out these videos on screen if you're interested, and thank you very much. Goodbye.